Hey friends, I'm back with another true story about a wild animal, and it's called Wild Orca, the oldest, wisest whale in the world. It's by Brenda Peterson, paintings by Wendall. Now this is a true story, and it takes place not too far from here in the San Juan Islands in Washington. Some of you might have even been there before. I have been there and taken several kayaking trips to watch whales. I never see any. Now Granny is one of the oldest whales in the world, and she is part of the pod that lives in that area. And here's a map. And this is the San Juan Island, and here's the smaller part. It's in the Salish Sea. There's Washington State, Canada, Vancouver Island, and the Pacific Ocean. On the longest day of summer light, Mia waits for Granny to join them for Orca Sing. Here in the misty and magical San Juan Islands, people come together to sing for the orcas. Will Granny and her family come again this year? Mia asked her mother. Granny might visit us, Mia's mother smiles, if she's not too busy. That's the thing about whales, is they're pretty unpredictable. You might say they're supposed to come this time of year, but you never know exactly when they'll show up. Granny is busy, being just 105 years old. That's 105 years old. That's cool. Granny is a great-great-grandmother. She watches over her three families, the scientists call J, K, and L pods. Now, you might remember when we read about Springer. So he was in the same area, but he belonged to a different pod. Granny was born in 1911, and researchers believe, before an iceberg sank the Titanic between our two world wars. She swam the silly Salish Sea soon after the Wright brothers flew their very first airplane and when Model T cars first hit the road. Before computers and the World Wide Web, there was Granny. Orcas can chat and call on their whale web. Now, it says that she was born in 1911. That's the year that the house that I live in was built. So that's kind of cool. And before the Titanic, that's kind of cool too. So that's a good way to kind of put it in perspective for you how old she is. I'm worried, Mia tells her father. We haven't spotted Granny's J-Pod family for a really long time. That's why we've come today, her father says. Help me drop the hydrophone so we can hear if the orcas sing with us. That's cool. So this is a microphone that goes underwater and then they can hear the whales. I would love that. All her life, Mia has listened to Granny's family pods in her father's Lime Kiln Point research lab. She recognizes Granny's pods just by their whistles. Each whale whistles a name when greeting another. It's called a signature whistle. Isn't that cool that they have their own language, and all the pods are a little bit different? We talked about that when we read about Springer. Those rapid-fire squeaks and screeches aren't just for talking. Orcas can see underwater with sound. They hunt salmon with sonar. It's their superpower. Orcas bounce their whistles off the sea bottom in boats. They scan for dangers, nets, sharks, big propellers, or kayaks coming too close. Isn't that cool? So it's like if I were to whistle and then it kind of bounced off the computer and then it would tell them that there's something there. I think that's amazing. No one in Granny's family gets lost thanks to her sound maps and long memory. Mia has memorized the calls of many of the orcas in Granny's family pods. Slick, Oreo, and Spock, Wave Walker, and Surprise. Her father hands Mia her headphones. Listen carefully. People sing brightly. Drums echo like soft heartbeats. Thrum, 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 thrum. With her binoculars, Mia anxiously scans for the bright blows of orca breath. So that's cool. Her father apparently is a research scientist, so she's getting to learn a lot about science at a very young age, which is really cool. Mia is scared thinking about the threats these endangered orcas face. Pollution, plastics, underwater sonar tests that can kill whales or make them go deaf. Sometimes orcas starve when salmon can't swim over big dams to find ocean or home streams. Sorry, it's kind of noisy. The garbage truck is here. So sometimes when the military practices their sonar, they're sending it through the ocean, and it can actually make whales go deaf. If you're a whale and you're deaf, it would be very, very hard to live. Do you think the babies are still okay? Mia asked her mother. Hope so, her mother says, but they both know that sometimes newborn orcas don't survive their first year. Not long ago, new orca calves were born. Front page news. Orca calves are the hope for Granny's pods. First, Granny and her family showed the babies how to breathe together. Swoosh, swoosh, blowholes blast out air. Rain blows. A hump, they breathe in, dive deep. So that's something that the babies have to learn, how to blow the air out and breathe it in, because they can drown, believe it or not, if they don't learn how to breathe properly. New calves are born travelers. Sometimes Granny swims 100 miles a day. She leads her family through risky waters, hunting from Alaska to California. On one hunt, a young female orca got trapped on shore and stranded. She cried out for Granny and her family. Ee! Ee! Aw, that's so sad. Mia's father and other islanders protected the whale with wet blankets that kept her skin cool with bucket after bucket of water. At last, the high tide lifted the young orca up off the rocks, and she swam so fast to Granny and her family, all the orcas whistled her name. On Lime Kiln Point, Mia wonders, is another orca stranded? Is Granny dead? No whale whistles, just the swoosh of waves and the clank-clank of a ferry boat. If she's 105 at some point, obviously she is going to die, and it's going to be really, really sad. Suddenly, me! Mia hears them calling. Before this, she sees 6 orcas surfacing. Swoosh, 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 swoosh. Dark fins slice through nightcaps, heading straight toward shore. Mia recognizes Granny's whistle. She spots the white patch below Granny's dorsal fin, near a half-moon nick. Look, she shouts happily, the babies, and Granny is in the lead. Newborn calves travel safely, tucked in between their aunties and Granny. It's a super pod, Mia calls. J, K, and L pods all visiting together. And there's another new baby. Near shore, family pods greet each other, headstands and flips, wild cartwheels over waves, orcas splashing their fins, kersplash. That's a lot of orcas. Rolling and bumping one another, orcas blow and breach, burp and chirp, spin and spy hop, just to peek around. Orcas sing too. They call like tiny kittens, meow, meow, or rusty doors, creak, creak. They're really beautiful, aren't they? So magnificent. Granny waves her huge fin at Mia. She lets out a rapid-fire bleeps, a click string, click, 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 ultrasonic whistles, wee, wee. Granny has been singing for more than 100 years. That's incredible. Mia hopes that she, like Granny, never stops singing, and that the new baby orcas will live just as long as Granny. So, as I keep saying, as in all nonfiction books, there's always going to be more information. This is more about Granny and the orcas, so if you're interested in learning more about this particular whale and her pods, this is where you'd learn about it. And here again is the map of where the area where they hang out mostly is right here. Now, the reason these books are so important is, it's always fun to learn about animals, but also what we do severely impacts their lives. Like, in the book earlier, it mentioned like polluting the water, throwing plastic in the water, building dams so the salmon cannot get back to the ocean. There's a lot of things that we can do to protect the earth that we're not doing. And so as you grow up, I hope that you'll remember to think about things like that and choices that you make when you live your life so you don't have a negative impact on others. All right, friends, happy reading.